Welcome back, everyone, to Aspire to Lead, where we will be discussing the visions, inspirations, and experiences from top educational leaders. My name is Joshua Stamper, and you can connect with me on Twitter or on Instagram at Joshua_Stamper. Welcome back, Aspire Leaders and Teach Better Family. I've got a phenomenal guest with me, and this is someone that obviously, if you either hear his voice or if you're on YouTube and see him on the screen, it's Mitch Weathers from Organized Binder, also the wonderful author of Executive Functioning for Every Classroom. And we're going to dive into this a little bit more. So if you haven't caught, the bonus episodes from previously, Mitch and I are specifically talking about executive functioning. I think this is such a valuable topic, especially at the beginning of the school year. And Mitch, I'm super excited to talk about specifically time and task management. Me and you, before we push record, talked about just the importance of this in regards to the beginning of the school year. I know I've got a new middle schooler. In my household, you have a new high schooler. And, especially in secondary, there's a lot of different classes, a lot of different teachers, a lot of procedures, and unfortunately, a lot of silos that exist in those spaces. So we'll talk about that. But before we do so, Mitch, I wanted to just throw out real quick that myself and my co-author, Charlie Peck, have a wonderful event going on September 30th at 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. Eastern time, where we're really going to have just a ton of fantastic guest speakers. Charlie and I are going to speak to about behavior for a virtual summit. So if you are interested, like I said, it's a free event, and I've got the link on the screen for those who are watching on YouTube. It's thrivingeducator.org/summit. That'll get you your reservation. And we've got such great speakers. We've got Todd Neslony, Allison Apsey, Darren Pepper. I mean, we've got a whole crew of folks. So you can head over to that website and you're going to see a lot of the various speakers that are going to be there. But again, it's tips and strategies that are practical, easy to implement, and are on a whole bunch of topics in regards to student anxiety, dealing with tough personal, family, academic, social issues that our kids are going through. Obviously, every educator that I've talked to at the beginning of the school year, when I keynote or give a presentation at a school district, first thing is they're talking about student behaviors and how they're going to, get things prepared for the classroom for the beginning of the year to make sure that they're doing their very best, to make sure that they're giving the resources and using the correct strategies to make sure that they are meeting the needs of their kids. And so we want to do something for everyone that's listening, and that will cost you nothing. So make sure that you're heading over to that link, getting your reservation, and listening to some fantastic folks that evening. So with that, Mitch, I want to turn it over to you because we were talking about your book, Executive Functioning for Every Classroom, and people all over the world, and I am specifically saying world because people are literally trying to get it all over. Let's talk about time and task management and just kind of the old practices that we're used to. I know in the book you talk about like the old agenda doesn't work. And so maybe that's a good starting point to just kind of give a baseline of where folks are typically at right now at the beginning of the school year.
Yeah. And I like your word siloed, and in particular that transition, like for what's going on in your home, transition to middle school. I've taught high school, most of my career. So I've been in high schools. I now get to visit, schools of all ages or grades, but a lot of high schools around the country. And now for the first time ever, I'm a parent at a high school. And wow, what I thought I knew, like even at Organized Binder, we have a bilingual guide for families that goes home and explains and invites them into this work around executive function, and parents love it, right? What parent doesn't want their kids setting goals and learning to manage their time and get organized and all these executive functions? But I got to admit, man, I was a little shocked at my experience, the newness of it, and just seeing it through a whole different lens. And one of the takeaways for me, and as we were chatting before the show, I went to my first back to school night as a parent. And my daughter, by the way, told me, we were in the car, all four of us, the whole family went. And she's like, Dad, you are a parent at this event. You're not to talk to any of my teachers. You're not to.
I've gotten that same talk, Mitch.
Right. Okay. It's fun. I mean, it's, being back on a campus is just like, that's wonderful. So
yes,
all of her teachers, incredibly happy, engaged, passionate, I was just so pleased, like, oh my goodness, I love this. And it's a big urban public high school and very big transition for my daughter and all of that. But one thing I was struck with was like, oh my gosh, you all have kind of the same goals, but for like organization or different things, but you're all going about it in your own way. And you're already siloed based on geography, like where you are on campus. And in high school, of course, the subject area I teach, like all these things create these silos. And the real interesting work, I think, is how do you keep that individuality? Because you it's by design. I mean, you're a content expert in this area, all of that. But how do you start to get collective and make collective efficacy a thing from class to class to class, to really be mindful of the cognitive load for students? And some of that, when we look at time and task management, and in my book, I do kind of take aim at some practices and just call it out for what it is. Like, this is what it is, and this is why it doesn't work. Time and task management in my program and in the book is the second step of a daily routine. So we're always starting with what I call flexing your working memory. And really, it's an opportunity to interact with things we've learned or experienced in previous lessons or previous days. And the goal there, of course, is clearing up misconceptions, answering questions before we're moving on. Second step in that routine is taking a moment to introduce and talk about what we're going to do today. And the subtitle of my book is Creating Safe and Predictable Learning Environments. And it's really a nod to, like, if the more we can make the experience predictable and clarity, like what's coming at me, what do I, the better for students, especially for students for whom their lives outside of school are anything but predictable. So I do believe in that. And what I see in most classrooms is I'll walk in and there's an agenda of some sort projected or written on the chalkboard or the whiteboard or something that is up there. And oftentimes it'll be an expectation of the teacher school-wide that you're posting the agenda. And I tell the story in the book of a teacher who did that. And we were meeting, it was the third or fourth week, I think, of the school year. And it's an organized binder school. And so we were going over it, and it was just one of what we call our follow-ups. And I was one-on-one with him in his classroom on his prep. And we were talking about it, and he said, yeah, the first, we were talking about the agenda and predictability and all of this. He said, yeah, I don't think anybody looks at the agenda anymore. And I was like, well, tell me about that. He said, well, I write it here. I look at my lesson. And he's actually spent he's really thoughtful about and intentional about what he was writing up there. Of course, it's not your whole lesson plan, but salient points. And if there's anything kids are responsible for outside of class. And he said, the first couple of weeks, I was really mindful of and purposefully introduced what we were going to do, referencing the agenda. And then he said the word, I'll just say it, it should be considered a 4-letter word for teachers. I just assumed that they would be looking at it and recording it in their agenda in their organized binder so they could remember these things and create that log. And we started unpacking that. And I said, yeah, but we've identified that they're not, and that now you're seeing due dates are being missed, homework is being forgotten about, because we made this assumption that, oh, you just have this now. What I see is there's something written up there, and it's rarely, if ever, referenced, maybe the homework. And I just think it's a missed opportunity, because there's a couple things there. Every teacher needs a little bit of business time at the beginning of class or every class period. Got to put my attendance in. I got to hand this papers back. I got to pass this thing out. We all have that. And what I advocate for in the beginning routine, what we call the kickoff, is that's not that time. I'm reteaching. I'm engaged. I'm with you, present, walking around, all that. But I still need that time. If I have an expectation that attendance needs to be in within 5 minutes, where am I going to fit that in? Not during the kickoff. Well, I could be talking about what we're doing today, and if there's anything you're doing outside of school from my class while I'm putting in my attendance or while I'm handing back paper. So it serves that purpose. It increases predictability. It can answer the why question, like, why are we learning this? What's it connected to? All of those things are baked in there. But if you were to look, you can even see it if you're listening or watching and have a copy of the book. or organized binder. If you look at that agenda page in our program, it's set up for there's 2 weeks on the front and 2 weeks on the back. So it kind of looks like a calendar or a planner. And what we do, and I think it's a golden opportunity, it's not all the time, but when there's a larger upcoming like assignment or assessment, put it on the calendar, put it on the agenda. So what we might say is, hey, we're here on this Monday, but we have this essay or this assessment or this project due date, whatever it is, just something that's got some weight to it. And that's due in 2 weeks. Let's go ahead and write that on our agenda because that's what people do who keep a calendar. And I'm not going to give you homework the night before because I want you to finalize or I want you to study for that thing, whatever. So let's write that on our agenda. And it's finding opportunities to model the skill of time and task management in a very basic way. And then taking it a step further when appropriate and just have the conversation about what a syllabus means in a college classroom and how you should hopefully, or might the expectation be that you just need to be ready to go in week 15. And I'm not going to talk about it anymore because you're in college. You're supposed to be able to do that. Well, I've never seen it modeled. No one's ever talked about it. And based on my personal lived experience, there's a huge inequity there, or possible inequity. So it's that agenda piece, although it's just a blip most of the time in a lesson. It's just that beginning piece. A lot can be happening. And if you're conscientiously creating this log in a student, for us, like in the student binder, and then often teachers will post that online as well. Talk about the clarity for parents. I mean, you're a parent. I mean, how many times have you had the experience where it's like, what'd you do today? Do you have any homework? Do you have your notes from class so I can help you with your math? The lack of clarity on the family side can be quite frustrating. So I think there's a lot there in that agenda. The quote unquote executive functioning skill is planning and time management. Like, okay, I have to do this on Wednesday. It's Monday. Let's have those important, brief but important conversations with students wrapped up in a minute or two of talking about the agenda and what we're going to do today. So
yeah, the thing I love about that, Mitch, is that it's not getting away from the agenda. The agenda exists, but it's just a different way of pushing it out and allowing the students to interact with that, to build the skills that are needed for them to be successful. Like you said, not even in college, but I mean, me and you need these executive functioning skills in our jobs every single day. So, we had a calendar invite just today for us to record, things that we have to plan out with our time and with our families and our profession. So I love how it's kind of flipped a little bit to make it a little bit better than not just a projection on the screen for them to take it in, but it's something that they're interacting with and building those skills, which is a very easy, simple step.
It is very simple. And interestingly, we work with community colleges in 4 years as well.
Sure.
And when they find out that K-12 kids are learning that skill, they're elated, because what often they identify as tripping students new to college or returning students, whatever that might be, is that ability to manage time. So now I'm like supposed to be fully independent and autonomous, and I have these classes and different things going on. Well, if I can just know how to map that out on a calendar, then I'm in the habit of looking on, like we do. You mentioned it. Like I looked this morning, okay, what's on my agenda? Or last night, what's on my calendar for tomorrow? Oh yeah, we're recording with Josh at this time, and this thing at 8 a.m. It seems so basic, but I can't tell you how many times, almost every time I'm in a room full of educators, whether it be 5 or 500, and I say, hey, and we're talking about this. Raise your hand if a caring adult ever took the time to model for you how to keep a calendar. And maybe there'll be 1 or 2, 3 hands that go up. And you just kind of have to sit with that and say, well, what if everybody raised their hand? Like wow, that could be pretty remarkable. And then there's more to this too. You can take the dive into project-based learning and really map out, like model for students, maybe the first project or 2 in terms of timelines, but then slowly letting them figure out that backwards planning and say, hey, we're going to take 3 weeks on the agenda, but it's much more student driven. So, okay, what do you need to do as a team? Who's going to do what? And let's map out the next 3 weeks. And now you have a way to execute on that. So there's a lot to be talked about with just a simple agenda. that I fear is oftentimes just passively sitting over in the corner of the whiteboard or chalkboard.
This podcast is a proud member of the Teach Better Podcast Network. Better today, better tomorrow, and the podcast to get you there. You can find out more at teachbetter.com/podcasts. Now let's get back to the episode.
Love that additional step there. And I know it obviously bridges the concept to real world execution and why it's so important for the students to have these skills moving forward. Because a lot of times the kids are like, why am I even doing this? This may be something in their minds, like I won't even use this, but in truth, they're going to use it every single day of their adult life.
Right. And you can take the step over into, of course, a digital planner. Yep. But the point has to be, and I've had this, it's a strong word, but I'd say argument. I've had this argument with a lot of schools where they say, I just don't see the point of all of this because we use Canvas and the calendar gets populated by the teachers. They just put all this stuff on the calendar. And I'm like, sure, that's a good resource. That's a good reference. No question. But we're talking about two different things.
Yep.
There's certain skills we only learn by doing, right? You have to practice it. And passively looking at a calendar that's pre-populated by somebody else, that's not time and task management. I need to look at that and put that stuff on my calendar, whether it be digital or analog. You know me, I advocate for analog first because I think that learning by doing, there's something about the tactile. It's not to say we can't also do digital, but yeah, there's a lot there for us to unpack, which is, maybe 30, 45 seconds in a lesson, but on occasion, having these conversations and modeling for students can really, really set them up for success. And to your point, in school and life.
All right. So Mitch, I have your website thrown up on the screen throughout our conversation, and it's definitely in your tagline too on the screen. For folks who want more information about what you have to offer, obviously you can go to organizedbinder.com. But, specifically for this topic, Mitch, is there anywhere else that you would refer them to learn more? I mean, obviously the book.
I think that would be, I would say the book. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, you could go to Organized Binder and poke around and check out the blog and explore there. We have tagged at the top. I was recently on Jennifer Gonzalez Cult of Pedagogy podcast. We spent some time on this because she wanted to do the daily routine. That's a good maybe listen, but I think the book, and if you're a Prime member, Amazon's kind of the spot to grab it. You can get it at organizedbinder.com. I don't know if I've mentioned this on here before, but that's fun because I get to sign it and personally send it. Awesome. That would be probably where I would steer people with this whole idea, because then you can see the agenda and take a deeper dive than even what we're talking about in that chapter. Sure. So, and
you have references and a whole bunch of different resources in there. So I definitely want folks to grab the book, head over to organizedbinder.com. If this is what you are looking for your classroom or for your campus, definitely get Mitch out to your school to help kind of implement this at a larger scale, because these executive functioning skills are so vital for our students. Mm-hmm. And it's extremely important. So make sure that you're reaching out to Mitch, grabbing that book, checking out the episode with him and wonderful Jennifer Gonzalez. Yeah, Mitch, I just appreciate you so much and what you're doing to schools, but then also to join me. I think we might have skipped a month because both me and you were so crazy busy at the beginning of the school year. But I'm glad that we can get back on and start back up for our monthly bonus episodes.
Yeah, me too. Thanks for having me back.